Hey everyone, welcome back to another video. Today we're going to be going over dictionaries in Python. We're going to be talking about why dictionaries are useful, when we would use them for, the situations in which we would use a dictionary, maybe over a list or some other data structure. We'll try to go through a few examples. I kind of want to make this video a little bit shorter than the previous videos just so we can get right to the point and so you guys don't just get bored to death. So let's go ahead and get right into it. So what is a dictionary? Well, in Python, you can think of a dictionary kind of how you would think of like the Webster dictionary or the Merriam dictionary. So you have a word and every word has a corresponding definition. So it would be something like word, and then this is the definition of another word, and then so on and so forth. You have a bunch of other words, word to def to, so on and so forth. Well, that's kind of the exact same way in Python, except our words are called keys. So instead of having like a word as a part of our definition or our dictionary, we'll have a key, and instead of having a definition, we'll have a value. So in the syntax will look exactly like this, and we'll encompass these with curly brackets and a variable name. So just like that. This is the general syntax for creating dictionaries in Python. So let's take a look at what that would look like. So let's say we want to create a dictionary, right? A database that's going to contain a bunch of different emails, and they are going to correspond to different usernames, right? So we'll call it database, and we're going to set that equal to a dictionary, and inside this dictionary we will have maybe an email. So hunter@gmail.com, and this email is going to be linked to some sort of username. So I'll say Hunter, let's see, as 00, and we want to have multiple users in our database, right? So I'll also add Matthew, and we'll say at yahoo.com, just like this. Right, and we can print out our database if we wanted to. So we can say database. Go ahead and save this and run it. Make sure it's working properly. And we will have our dictionary right here. So here's our database with our first email linked to our first value, our second key to our second value, and we can add as many values as we like. And in dictionaries, they're not limited to just strings. So not limited to strings. They can contain any type of value, any type of variable. So let's say within our database, we also want to keep track of, let's say instead of emails, the way you can sign up is using a unique number, right? Or actually, instead of number, let's say we want to, you know what, we'll do number. So we'll say this unique number is 1298. So just something random. So this is our key, and our value is going to be, sorry, there's a car driving by awkwardly. We'll do, let's see, I don't know, unique ID. This is their key is a unique ID, and their value is the word. Maybe we should flip this. We'll flip this. So we'll say unique ID, and then the value of the unique ID is, I don't know, some random number, right? Something like this. So we can run this again just to make sure it's working. So notice here now in our database we have strings, and we included an integer, and we have that exactly right here. So we have an integer included. Oh, you can't see that well. Let me move this a little higher. My face is in the way. There we go. So we have unique ID, and then right here we have our number with our time. Okay. So, and then now I'm gonna go off example a little bit. But let's say in our database we also wanted to keep track of, let's say instead of implementing all the users and usernames like this, we wanted to just have a list, right? So we can say something like usernames right? So this is the key value. This is our word for our definition. And we just want to link all the usernames to a list, right? So we can say Hunter Macia 00 is the first value in the list. Say Matthew 00 is the second value in our list, and let's say we just have a third value. Say Macia is 123 is the third value in our list. And let's see what's wrong with this. Oh, I'm missing a comma. There we go. So here's our first key value pair. Here's our second key value pair, our third key value pair, and our fourth key value pair. So again, I mentioned dictionaries can contain any type of variables. So we have strings linked with a string. Same thing with example 2. In example 3, we have a string linked with an integer, and then a string linked with a list. So we can mix match however we'd like. Another thing to mention with dictionaries is they are unordered. So with like a list, you're able to index. So you're able to say my list at index 0, and you'll get your value at whatever 0 is. Well, a dictionary is unordered, so you're unable to do that. Did I spell it? Unordered. Yeah, that's right. They are mutable, right? So you're able to change a dictionary. Let's say you have its key and you want to change this value, you're able to do that. And let's say unordered, they're mutable. And yeah, that's something else slipping my mind. We'll see if I get back to it. So let's see, we have strings, integers, list. I believe that's all the different variable types we've covered so far. And let's just run this. Let's run this to make sure it's printing out properly. Make sure we're getting our list printed out like we should. And there we go, right here. So if I run this up, we have our usernames right here and our list right there. Now let's go ahead and iterate over this, right? So with like a list, we're able to say my list is equal to, Hunter, Cia's, Matthew, and we were able to say for name in my list. Go ahead and print every value out, and every value in this case is going to be name. Let me comment this out, and if we ran this, we're able to get every single value printed out right here. Well, we can kind of do the same thing with our dictionary. Let me go ahead and minimize this a little bit. So this is how we would do it with the list. If we wanted to do the same thing with a dictionary, it would be similar. So we can say for every key in our database dot keys, right? So we want to access just the keys. So we only care about Hunter at Gmail, Matthew at Yahoo, unique ID, and usernames. We don't care about these values. We just want the keys. So that means K is going to iterate over our database. It's going to start at Hunter at gmail.com. Then the next time it goes in its loop, it's going to go at Matthew at Yahoo, and then unique ID, and so on. So if we print this out, if we print out K, we should get these four right here. And let's go ahead and test this out. Let's not do that. Now let's do this. And there we go. We got all of our keys printed out right here. That's how we would access different keys. We can do the same thing with values. So let me just leave a comment right here. Iterate over keys. And then now we'll iterate over values. And we'll do it a very similar way. So we'll say for every value in our database dot values. So this is going to iterate over every single value. Then we'll print out V. And let's see if we save this. I'll go ahead and add a new line right here just to separate. Let me see. Actually, I'll add this. Iterating over keys. Iterating over values. And then in between, I'll add a new line just to add some space so it's just easier to see. And if we run this, there we go, we have it right there. So we have Where's our keys? Right here, iterating over keys. We have all of our keys printed out, and then right below that, iterating over values, we have our string, our second string, our integer, and then our list. All right, so let's see. There's also other ways we can access these values. We could say something like for I in database. Now, go ahead and pause the video if you don't know what I is going to represent. But if we go ahead and just run this is the beautiful part about programming. Sometimes we can just test things out to see what happens. If we hover over I, we'll notice we'll get a string. It'll say it's going to be of string type. If we hover over K, again, it'll say string. V, it'll say string. Now, you can ask yourself, well, is that just because our first value is string, or because the majority of the values are strings? Well, let's just run it. Let's just see what's going to get printed out. Why is it a string? So if we run this, maybe I should add a new line so it's easier to see. So if I go ahead and run this one more time, let me clear this screen just because we have a bunch of stuff going on. So if I run this, when we don't specify .keys or .values, whenever we just say the database, right, we're going to get Hunter at Gmail, Matthew at Yahoo, unique ID, and usernames. So very similar to keys. So this is another way to iterate over keys. So you can specify database.keys, or you can just say database. Now, with that, you might think, well, there's probably a different way to iterate over values, right? And there is another way to iterate over values. So we can do something very similar, and it's going to look a lot like how we would iterate over lists, depending on how we structured our for loop. But we can say for x, and again, these are just temporary variables. I'm running out of different names, but we can say for x in database. Let's print out database at x. Let's see what happens here. And I won't mess this one up. I'll make sure I'll add a new line. And if we run this, I kind of left a little comma giveaway, but this is essentially, this is another way to iterate over the different values in our dictionary, right? So we can, I know I said they're unordered, and they are unordered. So this is just going in the way that they were input, where we can't say something like, we would not be able to do something like print database that, index 0. We just can't do that. However, we can say, oh, well, I have a database with 10,000 different emails. I don't really know where Hunter Macias is at. I have no clue. I don't know what value this is, or not Hunter Macias, the Hunter at Gmail, right? I know that there's an email or an account called hunter at gmail.com. I need to know the value, right? I need to know this username. I need to know Hunter Macias 0. I don't know it, but I do know the email. So how do I get access to that? Well, we could say something like print database at hunter at Gmail, right? So if we did this, and if we ran it, let me add a new line right here. It'll give us the username. So we're able to access values if we know the key, right? So if I specify, hey, this is the key, give me whatever value is linked to this, then we can kind of index in that way, but we are unable to do it by location, how we would normally do a list. Now, normally we would use a dictionary. I know I talked about I said at the beginning of the video, we're gonna discuss, why we would use a dictionary versus a list. And, dictionaries, they do have O of 1 lookup time. Many of you might not know what that means, but essentially it just means that they're very fast, very efficient way to access items, to look up, to search items in our dictionary. And then based on this example, you can tell by different situations in which they might be useful. If we want to have a database with different usernames linked with different emails and things like that, whereas with a list, we'd just be listing out different items, and this is just a more efficient way to store information like that. That's it for this one. I'll be making a part 2 video and going into more depth about dictionaries, why we use them, more useful examples, but I hope this was a good intro, and I hope it was really helpful. So, see ya.